Welcome to the Natural Genius podcast. We're here to help you tap into your natural genius. Let's go. It's a pleasure to introduce Nick. He is such a fun person to be around. I love having met him years ago in Melbourne and seeing his audacious, successful Tram Sessions where he had bands spontaneously show up on public transport in Melbourne. He has gone on to do so many different social entrepreneurship initiatives, and also it's so lovely seeing him as a family man and with children and living between Australia and Sweden. And yeah, what a golden human. Enjoy hearing Nick. Nick, welcome to the Natural Genius podcast.
Well, thank you very much.
Nick, it is just a treat to be back in contact after us meeting in Melbourne years ago. And I wanted to start off with a really easy one, which is, how can social impact work change the world, and what do you love about it?
Well, an easy one, isn't it? Well, I think
maybe not.
I think
Sorry, Nick.
no, that's okay. So I think what's really interesting with social impact or social entrepreneurship and all that, like that field, that sector, is that if you mix people who want to do something, and then you mix it with people who want to do something that's a little bit better than it was before, then it can become a really great mix. So for me, that's what I really resonate. That's why I resonate with these kind of this sector, these topics, is that what can you do? What can you do in a group, and what can you do together in a system? And you can really make a big difference then. So I think that's what I like. It's usually a good vibe around these people.
And it reminds me, what was the inception or idea behind Tram Sessions, which is how we first met? And can you tell us, for those who were unlucky enough to not be part of it, tell us about it?
Yeah, sure.
I have a feeling that in what you just said, it's a good example, and that you achieved so much through that initiative.
Well, I think that was really fueled by joy, and that's something that later in life I kind of come back to, trying to grab that feeling again, find that feeling again. But in a nutshell, Tram Session was we invited bands to play music on trams in the city of Melbourne, and there was impromptu. No one knew that these bands are coming in, and we're talking really high class bands. Like we had Paul Kelly on a tram, we had Vance Joy on a tram, we had like a lot of the
Amazing.
strong musical acts of Australia.
What a favorite.
Yeah, so I think also, Sam, like imagine if you sit in your own living room, and then all of a sudden, you feel comfortable and all this kind of stuff, and then all of a sudden someone comes in and play these amazing musical acts just like 1 meter away from you, or not even like 30 centimeters or whatever. It just changes the whole atmosphere in that tram. And I think that was really the core of it, that it just burst bubbles of, people sitting on their phones or magazines or whatever. And then all of a sudden this music just comes in and woof, and people see each other in the faces rather than just looking around.
Oh, Nick, you must reflect on it and be so proud of yourself.
You know what? I saw, this was only a few weeks ago, but it's still on YouTube, Tram Session. So the website is down, but all the videos are on YouTube, and there's comments every day. So even though the project and the organization doesn't run anymore, but it's alive somehow. And I find that amazing. That plays with your mind, doesn't it? So I finished Tram Sessions, it's done, but it's not. It's still alive.
And do you find yourself responding to those comments, or you just observe it as an outsider now? Like you're not really running
Yeah,
the accounts?
no, I haven't responded as much, but I shouldn't a bit, shouldn't I? It's kind of fun.
Well, I mean, if there's joy there for you, that sounds good to me. And
Mm.
so, how did that then? I imagine that would have led into different initiatives and other initiatives that you've done. And uh, do you keep designing with joy from that and the work that you did in Melbourne? Like what then evolved, all the different projects that you've done?
It's been a few over the years, but I think recently, maybe 1 year ago, I
Mm,
started a project or an assignment really together with a social impact organization in Stockholm. And what we were looking at is how a non-profit organization can attract funding from various sources, from different kinds
mm,
of sources. You have the typical grant
mm,
side, but then you also have business. So it's different kinds of principles that work then. And a lot of the time, non-profits, they can almost only receive money from the grant
mm,
principle in a way. And it just becomes hard to attract business money because it's different principles. So these kind of sectors, they work in different ways.
mm,
So, and this is something that I found really hard when I've been sort of working with a lot of social entrepreneurs because they struggle with this. So
mm,
what we did was to invite key people from various sectors into the one
mm,
room. So
mm,
we had the most senior and biggest foundations in
mm,
Sweden. We had lawyers, especially specialists within tax systems and setup of organizational structures, legal entities. But then we also had business and
mm,
nonprofit professionals, and then also academia. So we
mhm,
had roughly 10 to 15 people, and we put them in the same room, and we said, okay, this is what we believe is the problem statement.
mm,
And this is what we believe we could do to sort of clear these barriers in a way. And we use this Changers Hub, the organization, as an example. And then we used another organization as well.
mm.
And that was a lot of time for play, Sam,
Is
because
that right?
it was amazing because it came, it's what we often do in life, and I'm so guilty at this as well all the time, is that we kind of stick with our perspective, right?
Mm,
That's nothing new, but it's more about how do we create spaces of allowing all these different sectors to understand each other a bit better from where
mm,
they are coming from, because
mm,
it's only then that we can crystallize some sort of a solution. And for me, that is play. It's really scary and hard
oh,
because
well said.
facilitating those kind of sessions, honest discussions is really hard. But for me, hard can also be play. Difficult can be
Oh,
playful. um, so that's probably one example.
Nick, gosh, I mean, that sounds so impressive. How do you set yourself up for that situation? Like, how do you prepare? I'm sure there's all the logistics and all the organizing beforehand. How do you prepare to be in that space as a facilitator that can help to break down those barriers and to get into each other's shoes and be empathetic and understanding and curious
Mm.
and joyful and playful?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot. I'm
Yeah.
impressed. I mean, I was
But
always going to be. I'm constantly impressed by you.
you're too kind. So I think there's a few things actually, because I think a lot of the times we don't give ourselves time enough to get to know people individually.
Mm,
So it can be very easy to wait and prepare for the one single session when you're all together. But if you have the time, or if you can take the time to
mm,
meet people individually, and there you as a facilitator can have that one-on-one honest conversation
yeah.
about their fears, about their struggles, about their this is probably
Mm,
what I think is a good idea. So you can understand them
amazing.
individually a little bit first, because
Sure.
when you then come into the room with all of them there, and they trust you a little bit, then you
Yeah.
can push them a little bit and guide them in a few questions and stuff. So I think that's probably the base, I think.
Yeah, well said. And there's a obvious theme for me there about through the joy that you created in Tram Sessions, and that the breaking down of people out of their bubbles, or that sort of those walls between people, or the I don't know, energetic walls, or however you want to say it. Do you think that that's
Yeah.
been a consistency through your whole life, like being able to have people talk honestly and truthfully to each other, or connect, or?
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, I don't necessarily know, I guess, but what I do believe in, and what I think, and I think this is something that I've gotten from my dad actually, is that you can, if you train and practice on, being a little bit funny with people, or push them a little bit, like make a few jokes that sort of not not even close to outrageous, or like poking the fun too much, but a little bit like
Yes.
with it, but that they trust that you are coming from a good place, from a kind heart, kind of thing.
Yes.
That usually triggers something, I think. And even when you do, I was on stage moderating this big event in November, and there was a few people in a panel, and panels can be quite boring sometimes, and this panel had all the ingredients for becoming a really boring panel. It was not
Oh, Nick,
necessarily
what are you
the
going to
people.
say next?
Yeah, no, but it wasn't necessarily the people
Right.
that you would choose to be in a panel. They weren't energetic. I mean, they had the gravitas, so they had the roles that was important enough, and they knew the topics and all that kind of stuff. But there was not much energy. Like their faces were pretty blank. So, and then it's even more important to sort of talk to them beforehand and see if you can find something where you can play a little bit with, and make
Well
fun
done.
with them. Yeah.
And so what happened?
That was a cliffhanger, wasn't it? No, it turned out to be a good one. I changed the questions, so like the thread of questioning
Yes.
after maybe 20% of the panel, and went much more personal. So it became much more about, do you actually speak truthfully to your other colleagues here who's in another sector? So it was a panel consisting of people from various sectors, right? And it all sounded so good, and everyone was so in love with everyone. And I know this is not true. Like I know that these two, like the business sector, and at this time it was the non-profit sector, I know that there's a lot of stuff here that's not being said. And this panel is about, cross-sector collaboration. So you kind of need to speak truthfully then. So then, because I knew one person in the panel quite well, I started to poke on him a bit. And I stopped in the question, like I said something in the lines of like, so is this really what you believe, or did you feel something else when you walked into the door today? And then he opened up. And that became a really powerful change of the conversation, because it allowed the other people to also say what they were thinking, not in an aggressive way, a very Swedish way, where you're very polite and seeking consensus and all that kind of stuff. But I found that you got more energy into it, because you could tap into that honesty, right? And you could tap into that truth, or you could find themselves a bit more.
Yeah, wow, like truth invitation.
That sounds good. I never used that before, but that sounds good.
Well, just here we go, collaborating and creating great ideas. But I mean, I think that's another thing that's happening through these podcast conversations. I feel, I don't know about you, Nick. I wonder if these days that we don't have time for not truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's so much beauty and there's so much connection, and the questions that I'm asking. I did a episode a couple of days back, and I did offer a few times to a dear new friend that are you sure you want this to go public? Because some of it is quite truthful, or a lot of it is really quite truthful and vulnerable. And thankfully they were like, yeah, please publish it. And I just was like, oh, wow. I mean, I recognize that I'm in this lovely position where I can just be curious and ask questions of friends and people in my network that I've wanted to catch up with, and that I think, I mean, I'm biased. I feel like everyone's got great inner, well, natural genius, and inner wisdom. And yeah, I think that hopefully these conversations will create those same sort of ripple effects, Nick, that those truth invitations lead to other truth. And I mean, so sweet in this conversation, my mind is ever so slightly still on a tram with those people imagining the putting down of phones and the glee looking across at each other. And actually, when you were talking about that before, it reminded me of Sydney Olympics. There's been a few moments in my life where the culture is just so loving and amazing and excited and dynamic, and Sydney managed to do that through the city, and people were helping each other on the trains as to where to go. And I remember being amongst a few people, and somebody was not too sure where to go when they got off the train, or what station to get off, or where we were at, or whatever, as the train was going. And somebody piped up and said, hope you don't mind, but you got to get off at the next stop. And there was this real joyfulness through the carriage. And then these amazing guides that were set up in different places were starting people singing, or creating all this really wonderful atmosphere. And that's to be human. Tell me more about joy. We were talking about that before. I want to hear how you, any other tips around how you embed joy and fun in the initiatives that you do.
So I think perhaps one thing that I'm getting better at, I constantly need to work on this, but it's to set up my own work, like my own days, because I work as an independent consultant in many ways now. And I have some really good assignments and long-term clients, and then some of my own projects. But it also means that I'm free to set up my time as however I wish. Indeed. So however do I wish to work? And it's harder than you think to really figure that out. Like, do I want to, simple stuff, like, do I want to start with a run every day? Just a short run, doesn't have to be much, or is the tennis on Wednesdays? That's the key thing for me. It really is, actually. I love my tennis on Wednesdays. And
I hope you're enjoying the Australian Open that's going on at the moment. The city here in Melbourne is full of people they're walking around, and you can see that their feet are a bit sore at the end of the day, and they're walking a bit slower after walking around their courts. And there's really
one of my favorite events.
Yeah,
one of my favorite events ever, the Australian Open, when I went to that, because it was so much joy and it's it's free flowing. So one thing is like, how do I set up my own sort of time and stuff? But then what's been most recent for me now is to really find the group that I want to work with. And this is not something new, find your tribe and all this kind of stuff. But that's also harder than you think, and also depending on what kind of projects you're in and what kind of work that you want to drive to create, right? So in one of my long-term clients is IKEA Social Entrepreneurship. So they work worldwide, and they do a self-organizing type of team. So it's a relatively small team. So a small part of IKEA, like tiny of IKEA, which is humongous, right? But IKEA Social Entrepreneurship, like 15 people, and we are self-organized. So there is one boss, but we are organizing how we want to work as an organization, how we want to work within projects, how we want to design the future. And then we discussed this together. And it was something about, finding the rhythm with people who are really senior many times, a lot of the times, and how you can, with that, allows you more freedom and it allows more play, because you know that if shit hits the fan, they will be there. We will be there for each other because we trust each other, because of the not just the seniority necessarily, but how we build up the relationships in between. So that's something that's been very present for me in the last year or so. So every time I try to, if I am doing a new project, or if I'm, starting something new, I really try to see who do I have around me, and how do I think the best setup is for that constellation. It doesn't necessarily have to be self-organizing, because it might not work for that constellation, but just being a bit more mindful about that.
This moment is about your natural genius. If there's a spark within you that wants to develop a lighter way, a clearer signal to achieve more, I'd like to work with you one-on-one. If you're after inspired direction in what you have to give, get in touch with me via our website, naturalgenius.com.au. Now back to the natural genius.
Okay.
Tell me more about this constellation. I love the way that you've described this. So is that also in terms of how often you're in a particular office with the new client or with the new people that you're working with, and how often you're kind of creating these serendipitous spaces so that you're working from, I don't know, the downstairs cafe or something at a new client? Tell me more about how you design that, Nick.
Yeah, so one part is obviously the physical space. So I work from a co-working space in the middle of the city, but that co-working space is a bit special because it's started by organizations, social impact organizations, who come from different parts of Stockholm. So some areas of Stockholm is really low socioeconomic set up in a way then. So what these guys want to do, they want to take the outskirts of Stockholm into the city. So they really curate a membership base that's with varied backgrounds. And that is, we were talking about Tram Sessions before, bursting your own bubble. It's the same kind of thing, right? So you have different experiences and expertise coming together. And I don't know how many people I've met through that who I then work with in various projects. So that's probably, the most obvious one.
Wow. How do you think they were clever enough to be able to bring in that diversity, Nick? Any levers or ways that you think that they managed that? Because that sounds impressive. It sounds like they've achieved what they set out to do.
Yeah, no, they are very good. And I think at the core of that is two individuals. They are fabulous. And one of them I've worked with a bit more, and he's just, it's one of these people who walks in the room, that classic thing, right? He just has that energy, but he has that energy of, I don't know, there's something about the kindness, seeing everyone, and I'm meaning like everyone in the room, like he's in the biggest smile, right? But he's always there, and then he doesn't let go of anything, I believe. So if you've said something, he might be a bit late sometimes, but he'll come back. There's the element of trust, perhaps, which sort of adds another layer to it. So it's not just someone who talks. Sometimes you have the the people with a lot of energy, and you can feel they're fantastic, but they kind of fade away, or like they sort of they disappear. He doesn't.
And as you said, might be a bit late. He's probably got plenty of stakeholders, plenty of people that he's having those interactions with, and that he comes back is impressive. I wanted to loop back to something that you said before. As you know, in putting the Do lectures on and in Australia, and having been to it in the UK and been inspired by the event and volunteering there, and then bringing it to Australia after that, in organising partners for that, most of the time behind the scenes, the partnership was we were running so fast it wasn't really time to put contracts together. And so we would trust each other, and we would have an email train that was full of what we were planning to do and what each other was comfortable with. But I loved, and this was inspired by the founders in Wales, David and Claire Hyatt, that trust network, and that it's a real joy to be around and in. And it's a bit like turning up to those different events or the different experiences that you talked about, where you're getting different stakeholders together and you'll be like, oh gosh, I hope this is going to work out. And also it brings me back to that trust invitation that we talked of before. It's so sweet to be able to 100% rely on each of those. And similarly with those partnerships, we weren't offering much. We were offering their brand in front of impressive people, but we weren't offering social media tiles or speaking at the event or anything like that. And again, inspired by the Hyatts, that was quite amazing, because it filtered out people that were just in it for brand exposure or for,
and I think that's the key, isn't it? You need, like, that's, I think that's, it filter out the ones who shouldn't be there. And that's something that I probably become a bit better at, maybe with age and stuff, that, you know, if something doesn't stick and if I don't get the right people with me, then I'll leave that for a while, that project or whatever that work is. Yes. And then try to come back to it later, because I hit my head against the wall too many times, you know, trying to force something. And especially when it comes to work that in one way or another is touching both your heart maybe, but others heart. And then you feel like you don't, you are not solving the thing that you said that you want to solve for that specific stakeholder. Yes. It's not a nice feeling. It's not. It's not what you want to do. So that's I like what you were describing there.
Yeah, and somebody it plays on my mind, because it's still kind of internally just sort of jars me a little bit, or pull the Band-Aid off quickly, or if something isn't working with somebody that you're working with or somebody that you've employed, work out for them to leave the business as soon as you can, as soon as you realise. And that was early entrepreneurship pain for me, learning that. I don't know whether I've still learnt it because my heart's in it, but actually I'll tell you this because it's a sweet story. My dad, when I was growing up, he ran in American terms it was a sweater, but in Australian terms it's a jumper. Jumper company, school jumper company. So we went to school and we had our dad's jumpers on. And he later in life I was doing change management consulting, and so that sometimes involved looking at spreadsheets and working out that there were these two companies coming together, or there was this new software coming in and that people would be made redundant. And he must have picked up on my pain around that. And he said to me, Sam, it was always painful for me to let people go. And he had two examples. He said, two people in particular that I had to let go from my company, I tracked their careers afterwards because I was, concerned for them. One went on to be a celebrated artist, and previously they had been painting on sheets and like doing internal design in a company in Sheridan Sheets, and then they went on to be a established artist. And I can't remember the other one, but another really great story. So, and I've noticed that oftentimes with people when they've been made redundant, it is this big shock. Both, what have I done wrong? It must have been me. Reflections on them not being good enough. And oftentimes when the business changes, it's not necessarily that. It's actually just that the situation needed to eject them from it. And
but maybe
the last bit was that I think that then they worked out what they wanted to do next and got a bit sharper and clearer and stronger and more powerful around that, sometimes not great situation.
And you know what? I think that comes to a lot of the times you come to a situation where you believe it's you are not good enough or you are good. It's like binary, right? So I'll tell you a story that maybe 4 years ago, I was the country director of a social impact organization in Sweden. It was a great position. It's a great organization. I was doing really fun work.
Yes.
But I wasn't happy. So I felt like I was struggling in achieving what I wanted to achieve. A little bit what we were talking about before. I was hitting my head against the wall because I didn't feel like I was achieving what I needed to achieve for the target audience, for the people that we wanted to serve at the end.
Sure.
And I was looking inwards. I was working with a coach. I was like, what can I do? So how can I work better with these stakeholders? How can I work better within the organization and so forth? And then one day it just came to the notion that right now, at this point of time, me and the organization is not a great match. It's not that the organization is bad. It's not that I'm bad. It's just not a good match. So I made the decision to resign. I didn't have a job to go to. I had some ideas, but nothing. I just like I can't do it in this way. Continue in the same way. If I want to change something, I've tried with everything that I think I can do.
Sure.
So what are my options? And one option is that I decide, not that it's someone else's fault. It's just I can also decide on what I want to do. And that was probably one decision that I'm the most proud of when it comes to professional life, right? Because it's so easy that you talk, you're giving me a high five here in the camera.
I totally am.
But I think it's so easy that you think that you should just go and find another job then, or if something, it's someone else's fault or whatever, but you always have a decision. And then obviously there's a lot of circumstances that you don't know, and they're all different in everyone's lives and all that kind of stuff. But that was very powerful for me and something I bring with me.
So impressed, Nick. And tell me, as we wrap this up, tell me about, is there any moments or people that have really influenced or helped you to have, that sounds like a real sort of sliding door moment and so mature, which, I mean, you have that in spades, and that you were working with a coach. Thank goodness that you had that support around you amongst other supports. But tell me, are there any kind of moments or people that have really helped to kind of shape the life that you get to lead now, and even talk to being in Australia and Sweden? And actually, sorry, before you do answer, I've got to say thank you for that gorgeous LinkedIn post that you did in ode to your beautiful wife. I love, and I loved seeing that you were declaring how wise she was, and also that she's your love of life. So anyway, please answer the question.
Well, she's I mean, she's
Oh,
a good
now,
one
Nick.
to always have.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's a good one to always have. You know, like I'm very fortunate, and we are fortunate to have each other in the family, and I think that's also something that's so easy to take for granted, right? So
Mm.
easy. So because we see a lot of people struggling with relationships and families and all this kind of stuff, and I'm just yeah, I'm very grateful for that. But in terms of you know, other people outside of the very close
Mm.
net, um,
Mm.
there's there's a few, and there's from for different reasons. I think, but I often go back to my grandpa, and sometimes it's I don't know. Sometimes, you know, when it's your grandpa, and it might be memories that they might not be the truth, but it's my truth. So I don't know, because I
We don't
was a
need to
bit
go
younger
there,
then.
Nick.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Just go
Let's
with
not
the
go to that.
shining sparkle.
Yeah. Let's go with the shining sparkles, because what I bring with me from him is kindness and the
Oh.
power of kindness. He was a bit known for being able to talk to anyone. So he I remember vividly from when we went into the country town where I grew up, and we lived on the countryside, so we went into town. And I went to buy something, and he was just waiting outside of the shops. And then I saw him sitting on a bench, and he was chatting to someone. But then I looked a bit closer, and then I saw it was the local drunk, Lasse. So he was sitting down talking to Lasse. And Lasse is not someone people necessarily want to sit next to, right? Because everyone knows who Lasse is. But my grandpa, he was sitting there having a chat, like just, you know, a relaxed chat. There was nothing, not a point. He didn't want to make a point out of it or anything. He was just sitting there, and then he saw me, and then he said goodbye to Lasse, and then he continued. And he was like that. And I think when we then later went to the funeral, we could see there was so many more people coming that wasn't the close family, like from random places came to say their goodbyes. And yeah, that did something to me, because it shows the power of kindness as well, even if it's not, you know, that they necessarily become the biggest entrepreneur or politician or whatever it might be, right? But he was someone for a lot of people, and that was because of kindness, and I like that.
Oh, I like that so much. You and I are similar beings in that respect. I've had my angel on earth auntie, she was like that, and I also had a boyfriend early on, and he always would talk to the butcher, the baker, anyone. And when people have noticed it in me, like my nephew, a few times, he'd be like, "Right, we're going into this shop, but we're not going to talk to anyone." It always makes me giggle, because I think, oh gosh, that poor kid has been through so many moments where we've been talking to people on a street, which with side by side, when I spent time with my auntie, I always delighted, because the two of us would get into conversation with strangers, and she would have them feel elated and delighted. And there's another aspect to that, Nick. I wonder if you experience this with your grandpa as well, in that, say she was going through the checkout at a supermarket, and she would just be saying to the person who was packing the bags and putting it all through, "Oh, thank you so much. How are you going? Have you had a big day? And how are your feet?" And I was always like, "Oh God, so empathetic, so sweet."
It's nice, isn't it?
I think so. Those little moments of kindness, you never know the next person that comes through the checkout, or the person might have been having a really awful day, or somebody might have just told her off about something, or yeah, it's just so. I feel very grateful, as you do, for your grandpa, that I've had those influences, and kindness spreads, doesn't it?
I think so. I
I
think so.
I feel like you and I could talk about so many more things, but perhaps that might be a lovely moment to end on kindness. Nick, what do you think?
Yeah, it sounds like a good idea. Not enough of kindness.
Yeah, bring the kindness in, and thank you so much. Speaking of kindness, for being there of a later in the evening at your place. As the sun's coming up here, isn't it fun to be across the world like that? Thank you, Nick.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Natural Genius podcast. Please share this with anyone who came to mind and visit us at naturalgenius.com.au. Thanks so much.